we're gonna be covering an additional video for the SMS broadcast receiver. This one will focus on sending data from the broadcast receiver to your activity. Now, when you're dealing with this, you're gonna have to get the code that you finished on the previous video for SMS broadcast receiver, and then before you start the video, make sure to go ahead and make the following changes. Add a little text view over here on the layout. I also made some changes to the color and the properties of the text, and I made a change on the color of the background just so it will be more consistent on the color scheme. Now we're gonna go start on the code, so pause the video, finish those changes to the UI, and then we can get started. So we're gonna send data to an activity. So remember that the broadcast receiver is not guaranteed that the app will be running when the broadcast receiver is running. So we need to send the data to the activity. We do that through the intent. Right now, we already have an intent or a variable intent that was given to us by the onReceive, so we need to create a different one. And this is going to be an intent. Remember, we need a context and a target. The context is given to us. The target is going to be the main activity.class. We can call start activity, just start intent. Well, we need to send data, so before that, let's say activity intent, put extra, let's put the text message, the key is gonna be SMS. Here, since the broadcast receiver is not inside an activity and is not an activity, we cannot just call the start activity. We need to provide a context. In our case, we're just gonna use the context that we got as part of the onReceive to start the activity. Once we're there, we're gonna go to here, to the intent, getting the intent through the getIntent method. Then we can get the message by calling the intent.get string extra. This is going to be SMS as the key. Then this should be an equals. We get the text view, so we can just find you by the. So this is the text view that you created. So just make sure you use the ID that you assigned to it, and then you put the text there. Okay. Here, let's divide it, because that returns a view, so it's not gonna know that it is a text view unless we tell it to. Unless it knows it's a text view, then it won't have access to the set text. Okay, perfect. Now let's run our application. Click on later. Let's wait for it to start. Okay, once installed. Okay, there's our activity. So what I'm gonna do is exit out of the application and then just send a message. So this message is going to be taken in by the broadcast receiver. Hey, nothing happened. What happened? Okay, so the problem right now is here. So let me go back to the main activity. And this is just Android in Android. It's just telling me that there's an error here, but there's no error. But actually the reason the app didn't work is because of this part of the code. So we're trying to start an activity from somewhere that is not an activity, which is a context. When you do that, you have to specify. Now notice how it doesn't tell you anything, it just crashes. Sometimes it will give you that information here, but sometimes it will just won't. So what we're gonna be doing is testing it out again. So I can You can see this crashed when the app is running. That will most likely give us the error on the log. So send the message. There it is. Okay. So here, since you're calling the activity from outside of an activity context, you have to use the flag activity new task. This is just because the reason why Android is not able to do it is because it requires an activity context to start an activity, just because of the way it handles the stack of activities and memory. But we don't have an activity context. The context we have is not an activity context. Now, there is one way to go about it, and it's to tell Android, hey, this activity doesn't come from an activity, so please do some additional steps to make sure that you can start it on the stack. And that's creating a task for the code. So we do that by sending the intent, then we say set flags. So it's a flag that we set to the intent, and this is coming from the intent class, flag activity on the task. So that will ensure that we can call or instantiate an activity from outside of an activity. Okay, perfect. So now our activity is started. Now let's go ahead and try this one more time. Now our broadcast receiver should start an activity and put the message inside of the UI. Okay, there it is. Now let's just do this. Let's run it. See how our intent read the message. Perfect. Now the problem is that our UI was not updated. The reason for this is mostly because this intent, if it finds that there's already a task that is running for the activity, it will not create a new one. And since it's not creating a new one, that means that the onCreate method is not being called. So it's only called, if you remember the activity lifecycle, when the activity is created in memory for the first time. So in order to fix that, we can use a method from the activity that is called onNewIntent. So onNewIntent will execute the code, put there whenever it gets an intent. However, this will only work if you're dealing with single task activities. So if you have more than one activity, then the way we're manipulating the data will not work. But we can just tell Android that if there is this activity, you are not allowed to instantiate more than one instance of the activity. If you go back to previous examples and you try to call start activity in the main 3 times, you will find that you end up with 3 new instances of your activity. So you're running the application 3 times, 3 instances. But this one, new task, means that if there's a task already, it will not create a new one. So we need to tell Android that there will only be one instance of it. So for that one, we need to use a flag or an attribute inside of the Android manifest. So go to your activity and then you're gonna say Android, and this is going to be the launch mode. And in this case, we're gonna use single task just because we're using flag activity new task. So this will ensure that one, our activity can only be instanced once, so you cannot have 5 instances of Spotify running at the same time. And number 2, that the onNewIntent method will be called every single time that you received a new intent. So let's go through all of the features that we just implemented. First, start an activity from a broadcast receiver when it's not running, and update the data from there. Then we're gonna be using the second part, and is updating the UI in real time. Now I mean in real time in the sense that Every time we get a text message, it's going to be updating the UI in response to the intent. And that's it for this one. If you want to practice more or play a little bit more with it, look at sending more complex data through the extras to the activity and just using that information there. Thank you.